The wind above Manhattan carried the cold edge of winter, slicing between the glittering towers as if to remind everyone that beauty was never warm for long. On the rooftop terrace of the Carter Industries headquarters, a gala was in full motion: music, champagne, the soft glow of string lights trembling against the night. Beneath the canopy, hundreds of guests mingled in gowns and tuxedos, speaking the language of wealth with smiles too polished to be honest. And at the center of it all stood Elise Carter, 38, CEO of one of the largest real estate companies in New York, preparing to deliver her speech for the home's first charity initiative. From the edge of the terrace came a disturbance. Small at first, a man's voice. Tired. Insistent. Then the firm tone of a guard. People turned. Near the buffet, a tall man in a faded work jacket was being restrained by two security officers. His clothes were clean but worn, his beard trimmed yet rough, his eyes the kind that had seen more streets than offices. Noah Reed didn't resist, but his posture was proud, shoulders squared, gaze steady even under the bright lights. "I told you," one guard said through clenched teeth, "he's not on the list." Brandon Hale, the company's CFO and Elise's former fiancé, appeared at that moment, his black suit gleaming like oil under the lights. He approached slowly, every step calculated. "What's the problem?" "He tried to sneak in, sir," the guard replied. Brandon's smile was thin. A homeless man at a fundraiser for housing. How poetic. He turned his gaze on Noah. "You have 2 minutes to disappear before I call the police. Or better, before I pull funding from the shelter that's been feeding you." The man didn't flinch. "You talk about homes," Noah said quietly. "But you build walls." The crowd gasped, the music faltered. Brandon's eyes hardened. "Get him out." Elise, who had been walking toward the podium, paused at the sudden silence. Her golden retriever, Scout, sitting obediently near her feet, let out a low growl. She followed the dog's gaze and saw Brandon holding a glass of champagne. Scout's growl deepened. Elise frowned. Scout never growled without reason. "What's going on here?" she asked, her voice carrying over the murmurs. Brandon straightened. "A trespasser, Elise. Don't worry, we're handling it." Elise's eyes landed on Noah. There was something in his stance: dignity, fatigue, and a strange calm that didn't belong to chaos. "Release him," she said. The guards hesitated. Brandon's tone turned icy. "Elise, this is a private event. He's a risk." "To what?" she asked, taking a step closer. "Our image?" The guests shifted uncomfortably. Cameras flashed, ready for scandal. "Please, Miss Carter," one of the guards whispered. "The board won't like this." Elise ignored him. "What's your name?" she asked the stranger. "Noah Reed." His voice was steady, though his hands were trembling slightly. "And why are you here?" "Because the people who live under your projects are about to lose the only shelter they have," he said. "The Haven 12 shelter. The funding you promised them hasn't arrived. They sent me to ask why." Brandon laughed under his breath. "Oh, this is rich. You think a man like you can walk into an event like this and accuse us in public?" Noah looked at him, unblinking. "I didn't come to accuse. I came to remind." The tension cracked like ice underfoot. Elise studied the man for a long moment. Behind his weariness, she saw something disarmingly human, a quiet strength she had almost forgotten existed. Brandon leaned toward her, his voice low enough for only her to hear. "Elise, if you side with him, you'll lose everything we built." "We didn't build the same thing, Brandon," she said softly. "You built a fortress. I wanted homes." Scout barked once, sharp and clear, breaking the silence. The crowd turned. Elise reached down, fingers brushing the dog's head. Her pulse was racing, but her expression remained composed. She looked up at Noah. "You came here for an answer," she said. "You'll get one." Brandon's jaw clenched. "You can't be serious." "I am." She turned toward the guards. "Let him go." The guards exchanged a look and slowly released Noah. He adjusted his jacket, nodding slightly in gratitude, though pride kept his words measured. "Thank you." "Don't thank her yet," Brandon snapped. "This man has no place here." Elise faced him fully now, her voice calm but dangerous. "Neither do lies." Brandon's eyes flicked to the champagne in his hand. He lifted it with a smirk. "To truth then." He took a sip. Scout's growl rose again. Elise's stomach twisted. She remembered her allergy to peanuts, how Brandon always ordered the champagne brand she could safely drink, and this wasn't it. Her mind caught on the detail, small but sharp, like a splinter. Noah noticed her hesitation. "You shouldn't drink that," he said quietly. "It's the wrong bottle." Brandon turned on him. "Excuse me?" You swapped it, Noah said, his voice low but clear. The label's different. Are you accusing me of something, Mr. Reed? Brandon's mockery barely hid his unease. Elise's heartbeat thundered in her ears. The crowd was watching, phones raised, social media streaming the moment in real time. Enough, she said finally. This isn't the place. She turned to Noah. Wait for me in the hallway. That's a mistake, Brandon hissed. Maybe, she said, but it'll be my mistake. Noah hesitated, then followed her order, disappearing through the side door. The tension remained behind him like smoke. Brandon leaned close again. You're risking your reputation for a drifter who probably picked that jacket out of a dumpster. Elise met his stare. And I'm wondering why a man who claims to love me once would threaten to destroy a shelter. Brandon's smile froze. Careful, Elise. Not everyone forgives rebellion. She looked past him at the city skyline, the thousand lights of homes she had promised to protect. Neither does my conscience. Brandon's expression shifted. Beneath his charm, a darker resolve stirred. He placed his empty glass on a tray and whispered, "Then you'd better learn how expensive it is." He walked away, leaving her standing under the trembling string lights, Scout pressing gently against her leg as if to anchor her to the ground. Elise exhaled slowly, aware that every eye was still on her. Somewhere below, car horns drifted up from Fifth Avenue, the sound of ordinary life she almost envied. She touched Scout's head again. "Let's find out who he really is," she murmured. The dog wagged its tail once, eager, as if it already knew. If you've ever seen someone stand tall against power, hit like and comment, justices, and tell us where you're listening from. Beneath the glitter and applause, the city waited. Tonight, a man without a home had walked into the kingdom of glass, and for the first time in years, Elise Carter wasn't sure which side of the glass she belonged on. Rain slicked the streets below Fifth Avenue, turning the city's reflection into a trembling river of light. From the rooftop, Elise could still hear the faint echo of music as the gala resumed behind her, but she no longer felt part of it. Her hand rested on Scout's collar as the dog pulled gently toward the hallway where Noah had disappeared. She followed, heels clicking through the dim corridor that smelled faintly of wax and champagne. When she found him, he was standing by a service elevator, head bowed, hands in his pockets, as though preparing to vanish. "You didn't have to wait," she said quietly. Noah looked up. "You told me to. Most people would have left anyway." "Most people don't get invited twice," he said with a faint smile. Elise almost smiled back but didn't. She studied him, his jacket damp at the edges, the kind of clothing that told a story of practicality, not poverty. "You said the funding stopped. Who told you to come here?" "No one," he answered. "I came because the others wouldn't. They said people like you don't listen unless the cameras are rolling." She glanced toward the ballroom doors. "They're still rolling. Then maybe someone will finally listen." His words weren't bitter. They carried the same quiet conviction he had shown on the terrace. Elise leaned against the wall, her mind whirring through the details. Brandon's threat, the champagne label, the crowd's silent judgment. None of it made sense. And yet every part of it did. "Tell me about Haven 12, she said. "It's a converted church on 116th, Noah replied. 20 beds, maybe 30 if we stack them close. Kids, veterans, a few single mothers. I used to volunteer fixing the roof until we ran out of supplies. When the checks stopped coming, we thought maybe it was a clerical error. But then someone said Brandon Hale handled all donations." Elise's stomach tightened. She had signed off on that budget herself 3 months ago. "You're saying he diverted funds?" "I'm saying someone did," Noah said. "And I'm saying if you meant what you said about homes first, maybe it's time you looked at the walls inside your own house." She wanted to be angry at him, but she couldn't. His honesty had no edges, it was just there, unavoidable, like a mirror. Scout brushed against his leg, sniffing his hand. The dog's acceptance said more than any apology could. Elise folded her arms, trying to regain authority. "You speak like a man who's seen too much. You learn fast on the street," he said. "Mostly what people throw away: food, furniture, promises." His voice softened. "My mother used to say a good home is one you build twice. First with wood, then with faith. I lost both." "What happened to her?" Elise asked before she could stop herself. "Cancer," he said simply. "The bills took the house. I sold everything to keep her comfortable, but comfort doesn't come cheap in this city." Elise's throat tightened. She thought of her own mother, gone for a decade now, a woman who taught her the difference between profit and purpose. Somewhere along the way, Elise had blurred that line. "I'm sorry," she said. "Don't be," Noah replied. "Just make sure the next family doesn't lose their roof because someone needed a bigger yacht." She let out a slow breath. You think it's that easy? Nothing worth doing ever is. He turned toward the elevator, pressing the button. I didn't come here to fight you, Miss Carter. I came because I believe you might still care. The elevator doors opened with a metallic sigh. He stepped in, but before they closed, Elise said, Wait. If I wanted to see Haven 12, would they let me? At this hour? He smiled faintly. They'd give you the last blanket and make you tea. Then take me there. His eyebrows lifted. You serious? I don't do sarcasm after midnight. He hesitated, then nodded. All right, but lose the heels. 15 minutes later. Her car pulled into a narrow Harlem street glistening under the drizzle. The neon sign of Haven 12 flickered in red letters half burned out, reading H. Venti, Elv. Inside, the smell of soup and damp wool filled the air. A volunteer in her 60s nodded at Noah. You're back early. Then she noticed Elise, elegant even under a borrowed coat. And you brought the mayor? Close? Noah said. CEO Carter. She came to see where her money goes. The woman's eyes softened. Or where it used to. Elise looked around rows of folding beds, chipped paint, a heater humming weakly. A little boy slept on his mother's lap, his tiny hand clutching a toy car missing one wheel. It's not much, Noah said quietly. But it's safer than outside. Elise knelt beside a window cracked at the corner. Rain dripped through a leak into a metal pot. The sound was steady, like a clock. How do you keep it running? Donations. Volunteers. Hope. His tone was half proud, half tired. You'd be surprised how far one hot meal can stretch a man's faith. She turned to him. And when hope runs out, we borrow someone else's, he said. She smiled faintly. You talk like a preacher. Used to build churches, he said. Some of it rubs off. For a moment, silence filled the space between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. Elise looked at him. This man who'd walked into her world and turned it inside out. What do you want from me, mister? Read? He shook his head. Nothing, just for you to look. I'm looking. Good, now don't forget. As if on cue, Scout nudged her knee. The dog had followed quietly, tail low, eyes bright. The shelter resident smiled, whispering about the rich lady with the golden dog. Elise's phone buzzed in her pocket, Brandon's name flashing on the screen. She let it ring. He won't stop, Noah said softly. He doesn't like losing control. Neither do I, Elise replied. Then you know what he's capable of. She pocketed the phone and met Noah's gaze. If he's stealing from this place, I'll find out. Careful, Noah said. Men like him don't go down easy. Neither do women like me. Her words hung in the air, quiet but unshakable. Outside, sirens passed, scattering their blue light across the cracked windows. Elise straightened. You'll hear from me soon, she said. I'm not letting this vanish into paperwork. You don't have to promise me, Noah said. Promise them. She looked at the little boy sleeping, his chest rising and falling with fragile peace. I already have. When she stepped back into the cold night, Scout trotting beside her, she felt the city differently, as if the skyscrapers themselves were holding their breath. Her car idled by the curb. Inside, she opened her phone and scrolled through the last funding report Brandon had sent her. Numbers lined up perfectly, too perfectly. Like a song that never missed a note. Fraud hid best in precision. Scout nudged her elbow as if to say what her conscience already knew. Something was rotting inside the walls of her empire. She started the engine, the city lights streaking across the windshield like veins of fire. In the rearview mirror, Noah stood beneath the flickering sign of Haven 12, watching her car pull away. He didn't wave, didn't call out, just stood there, hands deep in his pockets. The quiet silhouette of a man who'd risked everything for a shred of truth. Elise drove on, her reflection merging with the blur of neon and rain. The words he'd said echoed softly in her mind. You might still care. She did. And that, she realized, was exactly what made her dangerous. Morning came gray and heavy, the kind of light that made the city look hungover from its own ambition. Elise sat by her office window on the 42nd floor, watching steam rise from the street grates below. The skyline stretched endless and perfect, but all she could see was a cracked window at Haven 12, and a little boy clutching a broken toy. She had barely slept. Scout lay curled on the carpet, occasionally lifting his head when her phone buzzed with messages she didn't want to read. The board wanted a follow-up report on last night's gala. Brandon's name appeared on every email thread, calm and professional, like a ghost pretending to be human. She closed her laptop, stood, and crossed to the long table where the charity budgets were neatly stacked. Everything looked pristine too pristine. Elise flipped through pages of numbers and signatures. On paper, the donations to Haven 12 had been made in full. The money existed, yet the shelter hadn't received a cent. It was a magic trick only greed could pull off. She stared at the initials at the bottom of the page. B.H. Brandon Hale. Her pulse quickened. There was a knock at the door. "Come in," she said. Her assistant, Marianne, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes softened by loyalty, stepped inside carrying 2 coffees. "You look like you didn't sleep," Marianne said, placing 1 cup down. "I didn't," Elise replied. "Gala went late." Marianne hesitated. "The press wants a statement. They're talking about the incident with that man. Noah Reed." Elise said, surprising herself with the ease of his name. "Yes. Him. Brandon's already issued a preliminary comment," he called it a misunderstanding. Elise's jaw tightened. "Of course he did." Marianne watched her carefully. "You want me to draft something?" Elise shook her head. "Not yet. First, I need to understand what really happened." She turned toward her desk, pulled up the company database, and typed a password only 2 people knew: herself and Brandon. As she opened the files, Scout lifted his head, tail tapping once against the floor as if sensing the tension rising again. The numbers stared back at her. Transfers, sub-accounts, dummy charities with familiar names. Brandon hadn't just diverted money. He'd built an entire maze to hide it. Elise scrolled faster, disbelief hardening into fury. The screen blurred. She remembered Noah's words. "Maybe it's time you looked at the walls inside your own house." She had, and the walls were bleeding. A sharp ping interrupted her thoughts. A calendar reminder: luncheon with Brandon at the Midtown Tower Club. She almost canceled, then thought better of it. Wolves only revealed themselves when they believed they were safe. By noon, she walked into the Tower Club with a composure she didn't feel. The restaurant glittered with quiet power mahogany, crystal, the hush of money being spoken fluently. Brandon was already there, charm wrapped around him like armor. "Elise?" he greeted, standing to kiss her cheek, the gesture cold and rehearsed. "You look tired." "So do you," she said, sitting across from him. "Busy night." "That's gala life," he said lightly. "The press loved it though. We'll ride that buzz for weeks. Unless it crashes first." His smile faltered. "Meaning?" "Meaning," she said, stirring her coffee. "I visited Haven 12 last night." Silence stretched thin. Brandon's fingers tightened around his glass. "At midnight? That's a dangerous part of town." "Not as dangerous as what I found." His expression hardened, then melted back into charm. "Elise, whatever sob story that man fed you, it's not real. You've got to stop letting emotion cloud judgment." "Emotion built this company," she said quietly. "My father started Carter Industries to put roofs over working families, not to pad shareholders' wallets." Brandon leaned in. "And your father isn't here anymore. Times change. Idealism doesn't pay dividends." She met his eyes. "Neither does theft." For a moment, his mask slipped a flash of shock, quickly buried. "Excuse me?" "Don't," she said sharply. "I know about the fake accounts, the rerouted donations. You used the charity fund like your personal portfolio." Brandon's voice dropped to a whisper. "You have no proof." "Not yet," she said, "but I will." He smiled again, slower this time, a predator's smile. "Careful, Elise. You're accusing a CFO of criminal activity. That's not a small allegation. It's smaller than what you've done." He leaned back, laughter soft but venomous. "You think anyone will believe you over me? You were engaged to me, remember? It'll look like spite." She stood. "If that's the story you want to tell, fine. But you should know, lies age faster than truth." "And truth," he said, standing too, "can be buried with enough money." Elise walked away before the argument could turn uglier. Outside, cold wind cut through her coat. She inhaled deeply, trying to steady herself. Scout waited in the car, head popping up as she opened the door. "I'm fine," she murmured, though her voice trembled. "Just fine." As she drove back to the office, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You don't know me, but I think you're looking for what's on this drive. Meet me behind the Haven 12 building at 9. Come alone." She stared at the screen. The message was unsigned. Another trap or the key she needed? That night, she parked her car a block away from the shelter. The rain had returned, misty and cold. Streetlights flickered across puddles, turning them into mirrors of rusted yellow. Noah was waiting, his shoulders hunched against the chill. "You got my message," he said. "That was you?" "I have a friend," he said. Miguel. He works maintenance at the Tower Club. He saw Brandon's assistant slip something into my backpack during the gala. Elise's breath caught. They planted evidence? Looks that way. Miguel pulled the security feed before it got deleted. He reached into his jacket and produced a small USB drive wrapped in plastic. This has everything, timestamps, footage, even audio. It's not perfect, but it's enough. She took it carefully. You realize if this is true, Brandon's finished. If it's true, Noah said, you might be too. Men like him don't go down quietly. I'll take that risk. You sure? I've been sure of very few things in my life, she said. This is one. For a moment, they stood under the leaking awning, the rain ticking like a heartbeat against the metal. You remind me of someone, Noah said. Who? My mother. She didn't scare easy either. Elise smiled faintly. She sounds like a woman I'd like to meet. You just did. Scout nudged between them, shaking rain from his coat. Elise looked at Noah. Tomorrow, I'll confront the board. If they stand with him, I'll take it public. That's a heavy road, Noah warned. You'll lose friends. Then they weren't friends. She pocketed the drive, zipped her coat, and looked toward the skyline glowing through the fog. Justice isn't a slogan. It's daylight. And I'm tired of the dark. As she drove away, Noah watched her taillights fade into the mist, a red thread unraveling toward the heart of the city. He whispered to himself, good luck, Miss Carter. Back in her office, Elise loaded the drive into her computer. The video played grainy but clear. Brandon's assistant slipping the USB into Noah's bag. Brandon nodding in approval. The timestamp matched the gala exactly. Her hands trembled, not from fear but from certainty. The truth had a shape now, and it was sharp enough to cut. Outside, dawn began to rise, painting the city in muted gold. For the first time in years, Elise Carter wasn't afraid of what the morning would bring. The morning sun did nothing to warm the air inside Carter Industries. The glass towers glittered against the sky, proud and blind, but inside, a storm gathered in whispers and glances. Elise walked through the marble lobby with her head high and the USB drive in her coat pocket, the evidence pulsing like a second heartbeat. She had spent the night watching the footage over and over until she could no longer feel her fingers. Brandon's betrayal wasn't just personal, it was structural, designed with precision. Every fake account, every forged signature was a thread pulling at the moral fabric of her company. Scout padded beside her, tail low, sensing the tension around her as employees greeted her with smiles that didn't reach their eyes. Rumors traveled faster than truth in this building, and by now, everyone had heard something about the incident at the gala. Elise entered the executive floor, where the board was already assembled. Brandon stood near the head of the table, immaculate in a navy suit, speaking softly to the directors. The moment she entered, his voice trailed off. Elise, he said smoothly. We were just discussing the charity audit. Seems there are a few discrepancies we'll need to address. She took her seat opposite him. I'm aware, she said. I've already begun looking into them. Good, he replied, smile cold. Then you'll agree we can't afford another public spectacle like last night. Depends on what you call a spectacle, she said evenly. The truth? Or the cover-up? His eyes narrowed. Let's not be dramatic. You think it's drama? She opened her laptop, projecting the security footage onto the wall screen. The room fell silent. The grainy video showed Brandon's assistant slipping the USB into Noah's backpack. The timestamp glowed in the corner like a signature of guilt. When the clip ended, Elise looked up. You planted evidence to frame an innocent man. And you embezzled millions from our housing projects. How long did you think it would take before I found out? Brandon laughed once, quietly. But there was no humor in it. You've lost perspective, Elise. You think that grainy clip proves anything? Anyone could have edited it. I didn't, said a voice from the door. Noah stepped in, holding a folder. He looked out of place in his worn jacket among tailored suits, but his calm drew the room's attention. I did the opposite, I verified it. The hotel tech team confirmed the metadata. It's real. Murmurs rippled through the directors. Brandon's charm faltered. You brought him here? He snapped. A vagrant? A witness, Elise said. And a better man than anyone who'd profit off the poor. Brandon's composure cracked. You're destroying yourself. If you expose this, the company collapses. Do you want that blood on your hands? The company isn't dying, Elise said quietly. The corruption is. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You don't understand how far this goes. Then explain it, she said. He didn't. Instead, he grabbed the laptop cable and yanked it free. Enough. The room froze. This meeting is over. It's not, Elise said. Not until I say it is. He glared at her, jaw tight. You're out of your depth. No, she said. I just learned how deep this goes. The board erupted in argument, half defending Brandon, half demanding clarity. Elise stood silent, letting the noise build until it became meaningless. Then she said, Security. Please escort Mr. Hale from the building. The guards hesitated, uncertain whom to obey. Brandon smiled again, but this time it was jagged. You think you can just erase me? You erased yourself, she replied. His hand twitched toward her desk. For a terrifying second, Elise thought he might strike her. But instead, he slammed his palm on the table and stormed out. The door echoed shut. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then an older director cleared his throat. What happens now? We investigate, Elise said. Every contract. Every account. And we start rebuilding what we broke. Noah watched her, eyes steady. She could see admiration there, but also worry. He knew this wasn't over. That evening, as the sun sank behind the skyline, Elise stood by her office window again. The city looked softer in twilight, as if forgiving her for taking too long to act. Noah leaned against the doorframe, Scout curled at his feet. You should rest, he said. I can't, she answered. Not yet. The board's divided. Some of them still think Brandon's the future. He's their reflection, Noah said. They see themselves in him. Then I'll have to change the mirror. She turned to him. You shouldn't have come back here. If he finds you. He already tried once, Noah said with a shrug. I'm still standing. You're reckless. So are you. He smiled faintly. That's what makes us dangerous. They both laughed softly. A fragile relief. You really think you can fix all this? He asked. I don't know, she said. But I can try. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number again. A message appeared. You shouldn't have done that. Watch your step. She stared at it, heartbeat slowing to a dangerous calm. Brandon. She whispered. He's not done. Then neither are you, Noah said. Don't let him scare you into silence. I won't. Later that night, Elise drove home through the empty streets of Manhattan. Scout's head rested on the passenger seat, eyes half closed. She felt a strange clarity, a stillness after the storm. She parked in front of her townhouse, unlocked the door, and froze. The lights were on. The alarm wasn't. Her chest tightened. Stay, she whispered to Scout. She stepped inside, every sense alert. The air smelled faintly of cologne, Brandon's brand. She moved toward the living room. Papers lay scattered across the table. Files she hadn't left there. A shadow moved near the window. You shouldn't have pushed me, Brandon's voice said, calm and cold. You think you're some kind of hero, but you're just naive. Get out, she said. Or what? You'll call security again? The board won't save you now. I don't need them, she said. I have the truth. Truth, he repeated with a sneer. You still think that matters? He stepped closer, the faint city light outlining his face. I built this company's future, Elise. You'll burn it down over one bleeding heart project. If that's what it takes to make it right, yes. Then you'll lose everything. Maybe, she said. But I'll keep my soul. For a heartbeat, he looked at her, and she saw something unhinged flicker in his eyes. Then Scout growled from the doorway, low and dangerous. Brandon's hand twitched, and Elise saw the glint of something metallic, her father's old letter opener, taken from her desk. Don't, she said, voice steady. Put it down. You took everything from me, he hissed. No, Brandon, you gave it away. Scout lunged just as he moved forward. The blade clattered to the floor, sliding across the tiles. Brandon stumbled back, cursing, as Scout pinned him, teeth bared. Elise grabbed the opener, heart pounding. It's over, she said. He glared up at her, breathing hard. You'll regret this. Maybe, she said again, echoing her words from the gala. But not as much as you will. The sirens came quickly after she called 911. The police led Brandon out in handcuffs, his expression distant, hollow. The neighbors peered from their windows, whispering. Elise stood at the doorway, Scout pressed against her leg. Noah arrived minutes later, drawn by the commotion. He looked at her, then at the police car. You okay? Ask me tomorrow, she said. He nodded. Tomorrow then. When the street quieted, she went back inside. The house smelled of fear and rain. She sank into a chair, exhaustion washing over her. Scout rested his head on her knee. Through the window, the city lights shimmered like distant promises. She whispered, almost to herself. Justice isn't fair, it's earned. And for the first time in years, she believed it. The city woke restless the next morning, rain pressing against glass like impatient fingers. Elise hadn't slept. The night had left her house littered with the echoes of sirens, the faint metallic smell of adrenaline, and the heavy silence that follows survival. She sat at her kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of black coffee that had long gone cold. Scout lay near the door, keeping one eye open, protective and still alert. The news was already everywhere. Carter Industries, CFO, arrested after alleged assault. Reporters camped outside, their umbrellas forming a small forest of curiosity. Elise ignored them. Her phone buzzed endlessly, messages from the board, the press, even her lawyer, but none from the one person she wanted to hear from. Noah. She hadn't seen him since the police car took Brandon away. She wasn't sure if he'd left because he thought she didn't need him or because he was wise enough to know that she did. When she finally left for the office, the lobby felt different, as if every polished surface reflected judgment. Cameras flashed. She said nothing. On the 42nd floor, the boardroom door was already open. The directors stood as she entered, some avoiding her eyes, others studying her with cautious respect. Miss Carter, began Mr. Daniels, the oldest member of the board. We've reviewed preliminary reports. The evidence against Mr. Hale is overwhelming. Embezzlement, falsified ledgers, even attempted poisoning. The shareholders will demand answers. They'll get them, Elise said. But first, we clean the rot. You're suggesting a full audit? A full reconstruction, she replied. Every department. Every contract. I want to know where every dollar went. Another director frowned. That could cripple us in the short term. So did corruption, she said. The silence that followed wasn't opposition, it was surrender. The motion passed unanimously. By the time the meeting ended, the sky outside had turned pale blue, tentative, as if the city itself wasn't sure whether to hope. Elise returned to her office, closed the door, and finally exhaled. She opened her laptop, intending to write a statement, but stopped when she saw the small envelope sitting on her desk. No stamp. Just her name in neat handwriting. She opened it. Inside was a single photograph. Her and Noah, at Haven 12. Taken from across the street. On the back, a message scrawled in ink. Some stories don't end with an arrest. Her heart tightened. She picked up the phone and called him. He answered on the second ring. You read my note. You scared me, she said. You're getting good at that. His chuckle was soft. Sorry. I figured it was safer than walking into your office. You've got enough eyes on you already. You're not wrong, she admitted. How are you holding up? Better than your ex, I bet, he said. Then, more serious. I heard about the arrest. You did the right thing. Doing the right thing doesn't always feel right, she said quietly. What's next? A press conference. The board wants to restore investor trust. I'll tell the truth. All of it? Every word. There was a pause, the kind that carried both admiration and worry. You're going to make enemies. Then I'll stand in line behind you, she said. And heard him smile on the other end. That afternoon, the press gathered in the glass atrium of Carter Industries. Reporters buzzed like flies around honey, cameras flashing, microphones raised. Elise stood behind the podium, Scout sitting quietly by her side, a picture of poise and defiance. She began with no script, only conviction. Last night, she said, Carter Industries confronted its own reflection. What we saw wasn't pretty. Our company was built on a promise to create homes, not hideouts for greed. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that. But today, that changes. Murmurs swept through the room. She continued. Our former CFO, Brandon Hale, betrayed the people who trusted him, and betrayed the values this company stands for. The investigation will be transparent. Every dollar misused will be returned to the communities that need it most. And for anyone who thinks power means immunity, consider this your notice. The walls are coming down. A burst of camera flashes followed. A reporter called out, Miss Carter, what do you say to those who believe you were complicit? Elise met the camera directly. Then they haven't met me. Her voice was steady, almost gentle. Justice isn't loud. It doesn't come with applause. It's what you do when no one's watching. Later, after the conference ended and the crowd dissolved into chatter and headlines, she returned to her office to find Noah waiting by the window. He looked almost out of place against the skyline, the worn denim of his jacket clashing with the polished glass. You handled that well. he said. I've had practice pretending I'm not terrified. You fooled everyone. Not you. He smiled. Not me. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she said, you should see this. She handed him a document, the internal memo announcing her next move. He skimmed it and raised an eyebrow. You're starting a construction program for the homeless? Under Carter Industries? Under my supervision, she said. It'll train them to build the very homes they'll live in. Pay them fair wages. Give them dignity. That's big. It's right, she said. And that's enough. He looked at her for a long moment, admiration softening into something deeper. You're a good woman, Elise. Good is a luxury. I'm just trying to be decent. Same thing, he said. They laughed quietly, the sound fragile but real. You know, when I walked into that gala, I didn't think I'd find an ally, Noah said. I just wanted someone to listen. And I didn't think I'd find a man brave enough to tell me the truth, she said. Seems we both got more than we bargained for. The room fell into a comfortable silence. The rain had stopped, leaving streaks of light across the windows. Elise looked out at the skyline. Do you ever wonder if it's possible to fix a place like this? The city? Noah asked. The system, she said. The greed, the hypocrisy. He thought for a moment. You don't fix it all. You fix your corner. Build one roof, help one person, tell one truth. Then hope someone else does the same. She nodded slowly. That's not much. It's everything, he said. Scout barked once as if agreeing. Elise smiled. You think he understands? Dogs always do, Noah said. They just don't need words. Evening settled like dust, soft and inevitable. As Noah turned to leave, he hesitated by the door. So what happens now? He asked. Now, Elise said. We start building again. He grinned. That sounds like work. It is, she said. But it's the kind worth doing. He nodded, tipping an invisible hat before disappearing down the hall. Elise stood alone, watching the city lights flicker back to life one by one. She thought of all the homes she'd built, all the walls she'd allowed to rise between compassion and success. Maybe this time, the walls would have windows wide enough to see through. Her phone buzzed with new messages, journalists, investors, politicians, but she ignored them all. For the first time, the noise didn't matter. She opened the window, letting the cool air rush in. Somewhere below, a siren wailed and faded into distance. A reminder that peace was never permanent, only earned moment by moment. She looked down at Scout, whose head rested on his paws. We did the hard part, she said softly. Now let's see if we can keep it. The dog thumped his tail once in answer. Outside, the city stretched awake again, imperfect, stubborn, alive. And above it all, Elise Carter felt something she hadn't in years. The quiet, unshakable certainty that truth, once spoken, could build more than any empire ever could. Autumn crept into Manhattan like a whispered apology, cooling the air and painting the skyline in shades of gold and ash. Months had passed since the scandal broke. Yet the city still spoke her name like a riddle it couldn't solve. Elise Carter, the woman who had stood against her own empire and won. At least, that's what the headlines said. But inside her, the battle wasn't over. The Carter Foundation for Housing Renewal had officially launched 6 weeks earlier, turning one abandoned lot at the edge of Harlem into a living project called the New Haven. What had once been a cracked stretch of concrete now hummed with the sound of hammers and hope. Men and women who had slept under bridges were now learning to build roofs. The air smelled of lumber and progress. Elise stood among them, her hair tied back, wearing jeans instead of suits, shaking hands with people who used to fear being seen. Noah was there too, clipboard in hand, explaining blueprints to a group of volunteers. He looked at home in a way he never had before, laughing with the workers. Sleeves rolled up, eyes bright beneath the morning Sunday. Scout wandered between them, occasionally dropping a tennis ball at someone's feet, winning hearts faster than any speech could. Elise smiled at the sight. You know, Noah said, walking over, I think Scout's running for mayor. He'd win in a landslide, she replied. He actually listens. You do too, Noah said softly. That's why this place exists. Elise looked at the construction site around them, rows of modest but sturdy homes, each one built by the hands of those who would soon live inside. It's still not enough, she said. There are thousands out there without roofs. You can't save everyone, Elise. Maybe not, she said. But I can save the promise. He studied her for a moment. You're not used to slowing down, are you? The world doesn't wait for reflection, she said, half smiling. It moves, even when it's broken. So fix it while walking, he said. She laughed, shaking her head. That's not how it works. Maybe it's exactly how it works. They were interrupted by a young boy running toward them, the same child who'd once slept at Haven 12. His name was Leo. Miss Carter. Mr. Reed. They said the first roof's done. Elise knelt to his level. Is that so? Yeah. Mom says we can move in soon. He grinned wide, missing a tooth. She smiled back. You better make sure the walls are strong enough for all that excitement. Leo nodded and ran off again, his laughter ringing like sunlight through the dust. Elise watched him go. That, Noah said, is why it's enough. She didn't answer, but her eyes softened. Later that afternoon, she met with the city's housing commissioner on site. The woman, a sharp, pragmatic official named Carmen Diaz, walked the gravel paths in her heels, pretending not to be impressed. I'll be honest, Miss Carter, she said, I didn't think you'd pull it off. Most of these projects die in committee. We didn't ask for permission, Elise said. We just built. Well, you've got our attention now, Diaz said. The mayor's office wants to feature this in next quarter's urban renewal plan. Elise raised an eyebrow. Publicity won't fix the system. No, Diaz said, but it might fund it. Elise nodded slowly. Fine. But no ribbon cuttings until the last family moves in. I'm done celebrating halfway victories. Diaz smirked. You're dangerous, Carter, the good kind. When she left, Noah joined her again. So what happens after this? He asked. We build another, she said simply. Then another. Until people stop calling it charity and start calling it justice. He smiled. That's the best blueprint I've ever heard. Evening descended slowly, wrapping the site in amber light. Workers packed up their tools, laughter echoing through the new streets. Elise stayed behind, walking between the houses as the wind carried the smell of sawdust and rain. Scout trotted beside her, leash dragging lightly in the dirt. She stopped at the last unfinished frame and looked out toward the city skyline, glowing distant and untouchable. Funny, she said to the dog. All that glass, and people still can't see each other. Scout whined softly, nudging her leg. Yeah, she said. You're right, keep building. She heard footsteps behind her. Noah again, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. Figured you'd forget dinner, he said, handing her one. She took it, grateful. I didn't forget, she said. Just postponed it indefinitely. They stood side by side, watching the lights flicker on in the first completed home. Inside, Leo and his mother unpacked boxes, their laughter muffled by the new walls. It was the sound of belonging. You know, Noah said quietly. You could have walked away. Sold the company. Left the mess to someone else. And live with what? Comfort? Peace, he said. She shook her head. Peace built on silence isn't peace. It's surrender. Maybe, he said. But I still wish you'd rest. Someday, she said. When I know this city doesn't need me anymore. So never, he teased. She smiled faintly. Probably. A distant siren wailed, fading into the hum of traffic. Somewhere far below, the world continued its restless motion. Elise took a slow breath, feeling the weight of everything she had fought: greed, betrayal, fear, and for the first time, it didn't crush her. It steadied her. You ever think about what comes after justice? Noah asked. She turned to him. You build again. He nodded. You're relentless. So are storms, she said. And sometimes, they wash things clean. Night settled fully. Floodlights cast long shadows over the site, transforming the half-built houses into outlines of hope. Noah looked at her, his voice quiet. You've changed a lot, Elise. No, she said. I just remembered who I was before I forgot. And who's that? My father's daughter. They stood in silence as the city hummed below. Scout barked once, chasing a moth through the light. Elise laughed softly, a sound unburdened. You ever wonder, she said, if the world notices the small victories? Noah thought about it. Maybe not. But the people inside these walls will. Then that's enough. The air cooled, brushing against her face like a benediction. She turned toward the homes, their silhouettes steady against the skyline. Tomorrow, reporters would return. Politicians would pose. Critics would question her motives. But tonight, this place belonged to no one but those who had built it. She looked at Noah. Thank you, she said simply. For what? For reminding me that truth can walk barefoot and still stand taller than power. He smiled. You reminded me that power can kneel and still not be weak. Guess we're even then. Guess so. He extended a hand. She took it, firm and certain, the kind of handshake that felt like a vow. The floodlights buzzed softly above them, the scent of rain in the air. Elise looked once more at the glowing windows ahead, tiny squares of gold in the dark, and whispered, "Justice isn't about winning. It's about building something that lasts." And as the wind rose again over Manhattan, carrying the sound of hammers, laughter, and distant traffic, she knew the city would never be the same. In a world obsessed with towers of glass, she had chosen to build walls that could breathe.